Yeah, I'm Dan Fitzpatrick here, stockmarketmentor.com, and I want to look at Lumentum Holdings for a few different things. First of all, let me just show you what we did. Um, Caught this stock right out. I was just going over this morning in our 90-minute training session, but we caught this stock really good coming right out of this squeeze and rode it up, had a few stops hit here and there. But that's why you want to keep partial stops as opposed to just all in, all out. I think that it's important to always be playing. You can have defense and offense on the field at the same time. You want to, in my mind, always be playing offense. You want to be making money and focusing on making money, but at the same time, you can be focused on not losing money as well. So you can kind of split up your trades into fractions, maybe a half, maybe a quarter, something like that. But as long as the stock is still working, as long as the trend that sucked you in the first place, as long as that is still working, then you really want to stay with the trend. I think that, I've heard a million times, how'd you make your money? I always sold too soon. That's really not a bad approach, obviously, since great traders sell too soon. I'm just suggesting that one way you can hold for a longer period of time and make more money is to sell part too soon. And there's kind of a difference. So I want you to just to be mindful of that. But so here's what I'm looking at with Lumentum here. So we'll take this off. Okay, the green line here is the 8-day exponential moving average. You'll notice that this is held really, really well most of the time. It did like really well up here. So this is a really solid support. But when the stock has broken down, it's been caught by the 20-day moving average. These two little lines here are similar. One is just the 21-day moving average, and the other is the middle Bollinger Band. So they all track pretty much the same. But you'll see that when this has broken down below the 8-day, it's never fallen below this middle Bollinger Band, this line of central tendency. And so here's the trade. As long as this continues to run higher and does not break below this middle band, this is a stock that you just want to stay in. And yeah, if you're a real active trader, gosh, maybe just a little teeny tiny pullback here is a good entry for me. Look, you're late on this one. There's no question about it. This isn't a valid entry. If you buy here, you're probably going to make money just because I would say that 344.15 is not the all-time high for the stock. But you want to be disciplined in what you're doing. And so this isn't a disciplined time to be buying the stock. What I'm saying is this really isn't the time when you want to be selling all of your position either. And I'm not just talking about this for Lumentum. This is the same with so many trades, so many stocks that are doing well. The 8-day EMA, excuse me, the 8-day EMA will support a really, really strong trend, but oftentimes the stock will get a little bit tired, fall through the 8-day EMA, but then it'll be caught on the 20-day exponent or the 20-day simple moving average, actually, or the 21-day moving average, which is what a lot of traders use. And so then you would look at this and say, all right, well, the breakdown below the 8-day, just turned out to be a shakeout. That was a pretty good entry, pretty good opportunity to buy. And then you just watch the stock, and frankly, then the next time it would fall down to the 20, that's your better entry. So we want to ride this stuff on the way up, trade around your position, and also just be mindful of this distinction between the 8-day EMA and the 21-day simple moving average. Both are really, really great and valid sources of support. So don't just disregard them. All right. Okay. That's all I got for you. Members, get over to today's strategy session because we covered a lot of really, really good information about what's coming up in December, and also went through a lot of really good trade ideas that you guys had. So check that out. If you're not a member, you can fix that right now and join for $7.